Hello everyone, welcome to my channel, The Offbeat Introvert. This is your favorite offbeat introvert, Raj. I hope you have all seen my previous videos about how I planned my New York trip and what are the trip highlights that I enjoyed as part of my New York trip. In this video, I'm going to review the entire trip. I will basically talk about what went well, what are the things that I screwed up, and what are the things that I can do and improve in my next trip planning as well as in my next trip journey. This video will be useful to you in two aspects. One, if you're planning on any of these solo trips in the future, you can follow these tips and tricks to make it better. Next is if you're planning to travel to New York and the United States in particular, you can make use of some of the processes and experience that I've gone through to make it even better. First, let me start off with what are the things that went wrong and what are the things that I regret as well. I'll start off with something smaller and I move to the bigger ones. The first thing that I could have improved is taking better pictures and taking pictures from the very beginning of the trip. So I did not take so much of photos or videos when I just entered the airport or started from home. I had a mindset of making a perfect vlog out of this trip. However, since it was really new to me, I was not in that particular mindset of rhythm where I just think photo first and then activity next. So that's the first thing that I think I could have improved as part of this trip. If you see that I didn't take photos of almost all my meals in my flight and also all the meals that I had as part of the trip. Even though I only had fewer meals as part of this trip, I skipped most of the dinners and I tried to skip some of the lunches as well. I could have taken better pictures of all the meals I had in a really appealing way, along with a better scenic views of the places that I had as well. Next is the decision I made to walk to Central Park on day 0, which was like a terrible idea because I had to walk around 3 miles, which was around 7 to 8 kilometers. My legs were like paining a lot. However, I managed to take risks because it's a park. There were a lot of sitting benches that helped me relax for a while and have some snacks as well. But I should have taken a bus and not caved into the intuition of my post-flight leg cramp shake-off strategy. Next is that I should not have skipped so much of meals. I had reasons of like tiredness, fatigue, low energy because I was really tired, so I was really lazy to find a place to eat. Another reason was also like if I find a fancy restaurant, I need to tip, which will be around 15% of the actual bill. I had only limited budget for food, so I also had to make sure I don't waste it on things like that. But I was initially thinking of relying on all the food courts that were available in all places in the New York City, but they were all like terrible places. Like most of them had hot dogs and some of them had falafels, which I don't like at all. So, I just wanted things like burger which are made of chicken or lamb, but I did not find any of those options. So I should have done a little bit of more research on restaurants and cheap places to eat, like for example Joe's Pizza. If I had just researched for some more places like that, then it would have helped me not starve so much as part of the trip. Next is missing some of the attractions and places that I listed as part of the itinerary due to reasons like I missed the timing and they closed the attraction, or I did not have enough time to see this because I have other priority attraction to visit. So this is something that comes on every trip, so I need to like refine my planning strategy and give some breathe space whenever possible so that I do not miss such things. I also need to take into account of things like opening hours of the attractions and time till which we can enter and leave, etc. For example, this time I missed National Museum of American India, New York, which I was really eager to visit, but I missed that entry time, so I had to miss it on the planned day. Next thing is like booking for wrong attractions that aren't worthy enough. So the attractions in New York are really expensive, that I can see that all of them are above $30, which is not like usual in any of the European cities like Barcelona or Amsterdam even. So I wanted to plan appropriately, but I did make one mistake, which is the Top of the Rock. I should have either pre-booked or I should have booked any other attractions, Summit One, Wanderlust, but it was really unworthy of the money. On top of that, they had this prime time access fee, which was like extra $15, which I regretted paying that very moment I paid for it. So I should have even planned better when it comes to attractions, especially the Top of the Rock. So if you are planning to visit Top of the Rock, think twice because it's not that worthy. Instead, you can go to other places like Summit One, Wanderlust or the One World Trade Center. Next is the bad flight food that I had in my return flight. I should have stopped eating it, or I should have first recognized what the meat is or asked the air hostess about it before I had it. It was like a really bad meal. I did not like anything related to that, but the onward flight meal was good. It was a chicken dish. However, the return flight meal, I think they switched with the wrong food and they gave it to me. I did not like it at all. It was really terrible. I should have spoken up front with the air hostess to switch the food or ask beforehand like what the food type is before I even got it from them. The next bad thing is the hostel room I stayed. It was stinking the whole time. I was feeling a dog stench throughout and other people were also feeling it. Nobody knew where it came from. It was stinking a lot bad while entering the hostel, but it is like a shared space. I did not know what to do, and on top of that, for a couple of days some of the roommates roommates were snoring really bad, and since I am a light sleeper, I had real difficulty sleeping in that noise. But it was only for a temporary amount of time, but I was able to manage. But the room stench was really existing throughout. I felt like since it's the old building, that stench developed for a while and it stayed and it could not be removed. I was able to manage while sleeping, but whenever I enter or leave the room, it was really terrible experience. Next terrible thing is the luggage mess in the return flight. So since there was only little amount of time for them to switch luggages, they missed my luggage from Copenhagen to Amsterdam flight. It was really bad experience. I had to wait for like a 30 minutes in the morning without having any breakfast, and I ended up disappointed because my luggage didn't arrive in the conveyor belt. And there were also a couple of other folks who faced the same issue, so I was a little bit relieved, and I had to wait for a long time for someone to attend to this helping desk. But I was really skeptical about them missing my luggage throughout and losing my valuables. It's a really bad experience. The next bad thing is the Copenhagen airport and the layover time. So I should have never booked the next flight within 1 hour layover time. I gave this as a criteria during my flight search, and it was like a really bad mistake. So I had to take into account that the flights will definitely get delayed most of the time, and the airports may not be really friendly enough for your layover transfer as well. So it was like one bigger pain when I actually went in a towards flight. I had to drag my entire luggage with me, and I need to run for like 2 to 3 kilometers within the airport between two gates, like the gate A to gate E. It was really painful. So I need to make sure that I give at least 2 hours in the search criteria for layovers so that I don't end up with this miserable situation. Similarly, the return flight to Amsterdam from Copenhagen as well, I had to run like hell from one gate to another gate. It was a totally a terrible experience. I had to make sure that I give at least 2 hours of layover time while searching for flights, and to make sure that I take into account of these gate switch transfers and other things related to the airports. Let's go over the good things and end this video really positively with a positive vibe. The first good thing is that my dream has finally come true to land my feet in American soil. I was really emotional. I was really happy. I'm really glad that I was able to do it. It is really, really great that I'm able to do it at least now. And I will never give up on my dreams because of achieving this now. Another good thing is the smooth visa process that I've gone through. I know I got the first appointment 1 year after my booking date, but since I've been following this process very closely with my colleagues and other friends, I was able to figure this out, and I was able to get an earlier appointment, and the process was really smooth, and I got the visa instantly approved and got my passport a lot sooner than I expected. Also, I even got the visa with validity much more than I had expected. So I believe that's one of the good things that happened as part of this trip. The next positive thing is that I found a better place to stay in the center of New York City, closer to Central Park. I felt like it is really hard to find such a cheap and best place to stay in the middle of New York City or the duration that I booked. I booked around like 1.5 months before the trip, and it is tedious to find a cheap hostel at that point in time. Even though the hostel had little problems, but I'm okay because the hostel is situated in a place which is really connected, and it was also cheap from my point of view. So it's a good thing. The next good thing is that the entire trip was safe and secure. I was really skeptical and scared on going on a solo trip because it's been a while since I went on my previous solo trip, but it was really great. And I also reached out to a couple of friends to make sure that I have some safety net there. The people were really friendly. I was able to go through all places like I've been in my hometown. It is really a friendly city, to be honest. Like I've heard that New York is really friendly in par with other cities in America. I also felt the same when I visited, and I did not face any issues or rudeness from people throughout my trip. Another good thing is that I didn't spend so much out of my pocket for this trip. I know it's funny, but I had a budget, and I also felt like I spent within the budget, mostly because I didn't spend some food budget. I also made sure that I spent within limit for the attractions. Mostly the budget was saved from food and souvenirs. Next is the bag issue. I know that I didn't get my bag on time. Also, there was some issue with getting support from the help desk, but they gave me a guarantee that it will reach my address the next day, and thankfully it arrived a little bit later that day. So I'm very much relieved. Another good thing that came out of this trip is the thrill of planning. It's been like a very wild ride, and it's like one of the longest dreams that I ever had to visit the United States and land my feet on the American soil. The thrill of planning is really huge for this. I was able to daydream a lot. Being an introvert, this is one of the stuff that make me happy to daydream and be in an imaginary world that gives a lot of pleasure. It will even be a lot more fun than the actual moment that happens than the dreams. To be honest, this trip is better in the aspects of food as well as like souvenirs and shopping compared to my previous trips, because I starved a lot during my previous solo trip to Hong Kong and Austria. This time I wanted to make sure that I am at least having 2 meals a day, so I made sure that I had the breakfast and then at least one meal after that. So it's an improvement, to be honest. That's one of the good things that happened as part of this trip. Yet I need to work on, I need to have better plan around eating food, especially like research on restaurants and budgets and other aspects that I can make sure to not starve myself during the trip. And the last and not the least, the whole trip is a huge success from my perspective, especially the highlights like the Statue of Liberty, the Manhattan Bridge and the Brooklyn Bridge, then Empire State Building, and also the American Museum of Natural History. To be honest, I almost completed everything except few of the places that I missed as part of the itinerary. So I'm really glad and happy that I'm able to go through this trip safely and securely, most of all like successfully by visiting most of the places that I planned. So here are some tips for solo travelers as well as those who are willing to travel to New York or United States. First one, research well on the visa interview process because it changes from country to country. Also make sure to get in touch with folks who have already gone through the process to know the tips and tricks to get early appointments. There are some tricks like you can go to nearby state or nearby city to get the as part of your appointment if you don't get any appointments in the city that you live in. So make sure to get in touch with your friends or colleagues who have gone through this process. Next one, have a solid itinerary that has some breathe space based upon your previous experiences, also my experience as part of this trip. So always try to have some breathe space. For example, the day one that you have trying to go, you make plan it lightly that you can adapt to the travel related tiredness or jet lags, etc. Next is make sure to book your flights and stay ahead of time, at least like 2 months, so that you will find cheap and best places to book. I know it's a little bit hard to plan 2 months ahead, but if you are so into going on a particular trip, you plan ahead and make sure to have some breathe space to cancel or rebook as part of your book. Make sure to have at least 2 hours of layover in your connecting flight airport so that you don't end up running like hell like I did. So make sure to give enough amount of time to include like moving across various gates and going through the immigration process, etc. Next important tip is to not accept the airplane food without asking what type of food it is, because I have faced so much trouble because of it. You should always check whether the dish is a vegetarian, non-vegetarian, chicken or other meat before you actually open it and eat it. The next tip is to make sure to research well on restaurants around the attractions that you visit. Also have some backup options for food so that you don't starve for any meals during the trip. This should also include any of the other custom aspects related to the country or the place you visit. In case of United States, you should also consider 50% tipping amount if you go for any of the restaurants with waiter service. The next tip you should make sure is to note down the opening and closing time of the attraction so that you move around the itinerary such a way that you accommodate the entry time and exit time of the attractions in your plan. One more tip is to not rely on your instincts when it comes to walking on day 0 or the day you visit to any of the attractions that are nearby, so that you can manage with the cramped up leg issues. So make sure to rely on the public transport and keep the day 0 cozy as well as like relaxing to give some breathe space for your body to adapt to the changes in time zones. Last but the most important tip you should follow is to make sure you have fun. You just make sure to have as much fun as you can so that these opportunities and memories that you create are everlasting, and they are also best gifts that you can present to yourself as well. With this, the New York solo trip review is done. I hope I've given you some useful information about planning a solo trip, and by sharing my experience I also believe you could learn a lot of things from my mistakes as well. Don't forget to share this with your friends to make them know that there is an introvert like me who dares and does things like going on an adventure solo trips like this. Keep supporting me, subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to press the bell button to get notification on my future videos. Thank you.